And we're back. You may want to mute your microphone there, Daniel, since while you finish up your pseudo lunch break. And I will pray. God, I just thank you for all the things you're doing in our lives, all the opportunities, and all the challenges. We pray that you would help us to think clearly and to be doing what you want us to do. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So what I've been doing is basically going through the code from our last time. I went ahead and cleaned up our specs file so that it's broken in the exact same way our source files are, or I should say broken out, although it's probably actually broken as well. And I've been dealing with a cascading series of crashes. So there's this lovely thing that when a require is failing, that whatever thing we're using to make stuff just blows up. So I got through the worst of it. Well, actually, I have no idea how far I've gone because it just crashes whenever it can't find something. I don't know if there is a easy way to tell what all is broken in the requires and even how many there are, or if they're just break, fix, break, fix, break, fix is the best way to go through it.
Probably break, fix, break, fix, break, fix. But I don't know.
All right. So we could chew through that, or either one of us could do that probably in our leisure time. I pushed the current state of the branch, the refactor files branch, if you wanted to look at it. But I went for a long walk over lunchtime, and the thing that I realized was that actually when you're doing dependency injection the way I am, which I don't know if anyone else does it this way, but you're creating a let me just go into the and I just wimped out and went back to next mate because I just couldn't take it anymore. So when I was thinking about what our God object needs to do is this. Actually, I guess I gotta have a spec. Do I have a spec? Oh no, I'm in master. Why am I in master? Let's try this again. Check out refactor files. There we go. There we go. Our God object is that I really want something like this. Is that I define, I think I was calling these. So the file structure naming I ended up with was world, wrap, eval, and syntax. And the reason was that I want to think of these primarily as methods on my God object. That I can eval something, I can wrap something, and then I have syntax, which I guess is not entirely parallel. But the hope is that, and those might not be they may not all be just naked worlds, although I'll start with that and then see. And the idea is that all of our different behaviors, which I guess we have here, is we want to basically we do wrap.push of our different wrappers, essentially. And then we call wrap, so that basically this document is where we various one is the root various one monad it relies upon is there a sort of a Java doc-like style for how I should be annotating methods that do something, or it just is what it is?
I don't know. I would say do it however you want.
Maybe JavaScript string to return a value. Value. And for worlds, and then hold syntax elements. Ideas is push to inject is into the global namespace. To search through alternatives for options. What are those? What should we call them? So thinking about it this way is everything that we have in all these different folders should end up in this global namespace, right? That's how we do our rendezvousing and our initialization. One question I had was, do we need lazy initialization? That is, should there be an init so that when we, like in individual places where you were, one of the reasons you had to do this dependency injection or this memoization thing was that because you needed to have something available later rather than at the time the file, the thing the file was relying on, the thing that you were calling was only available after everyone had read everything?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that case, that implies we want some sort of a way to defer execution until there's well, let's actually just think through. Let me tell you what I want to do, and then you can tell me how we should do this. All right, we have a God object, which we define here. And then now this global here, what does the global dot do? That just sets a global?
Right. So in Node, right, the idea is that you only have access to your local variables.
Right.
But if you set global, then everything in the current execution will have it.
Right. Now, when does this get set, and how do I know that this gets set before or after anything else?
That depends on how we build it.
Okay. And how do we build it?
Let's take a look.
Let's look at the Makefile.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then so. Looks like it's alphabetical.
No, actually, so look at, in this case, since we really haven't ever built this yet, I actually want to look at Mocha options, because that's actually how it's being run right now. So look at mocha.ops. And you can see the last line where it's require. That sets that we require that before any other file.
Okay. So we require that first, and then okay, and then everything else it just grabs from. How does it know where else to grab stuff from?
The recursive flag, it just grabs everything else.
Okay.
And then our specs are individually requiring the files they need.
Okay, can I ask another possibly stupid question? Why
Mm-hmm.
do we have a separate spec directory as opposed to like having the specs next to the objects that they refer to?
Um, because that's generally how things are done. You have a separate test directory and a source directory and a test directory.
Okay.
Um,
It does make it somewhat fragile, right? Is that anytime I change anything, I have to rewrite 15 different requires. Um, that's the only downside. Is that well, that's the main downside. Is it feels like there's no locality of reference.
right.
So is there some so the pain is that if we do it this way, I have to keep jumping around to figure out where the spec is associated with these files, and then anytime I change anything, I have to change it a whole bunch of different places. What's the win of doing it that way?
Um,
Okay.
well, I mean, the win is that you keep your stuff separated. Like your tests are not actually part of your regular code, so you keep them separated out. Um,
But I mean, if you had a spec directory inside the top level folder, it would still be separated out. I guess the difference is that if you're navigating through and you want to see all the specs, having them all in one place is an advantage.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, usually what it has to do with is that, the entire source directory is going to get compiled into something.
Ah, right. This allows us to just build the source cleanly.
Right.
Whereas if we had to exclude everything from the spec file, it would be a little extra. And also, when you have some, I guess some test runners actually they want you want to just load everything in the spec directory, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way things are built, it likes the separation.
Yes.
Okay.
The tooling assumes it.
Okay, that's probably even a stronger statement. Or expects it at least. So you have to. If you don't do that, other things will get painful. Okay. So
Right.
it's better for the tooling, even if it's annoying for the humans at the point where we're thrashing around madly.
Mhm.
Actually, even I mean, that feels like a concession to the machine. But if that's the easiest way to do it, then I will.
I mean, personally, I like it. I feel like I would get confused and if everything was just in one directory. Like I feel like it keeps like this is how we test things, this is how we write things, this is what it actually is, and this is how we test things.
Right, but the idea would be just clear, right? This list is that we would do it, like this, where this would be the specs associated with, or something like that. Of course, then it just throws it in the middle there, which doesn't actually make it any clearer, does it? So, all right. So we just manually. I hate file systems. Okay, we just manually munge it for now.
There are ways to like, Ruby, you can do intelligent load paths, right? Like
Right.
you can require something and it will traverse a specific directory that you set, but it's considered bad practice in Node to do that.
Yeah. Yes. And okay. So I will concede that this is common practice and works well with the tools, and there isn't a great alternative that will get the visual appearance I want. So, okay. All right. So Swan. Okay, that was a big deep question. So Swan.coffee will be run first. Then we want to have something like um, the I just have this there for to remove this. And then this will end up becoming something like eval do thing. Like that. Okay, so then God is this thing here. So what we want is module.exports is always visible. Is there a way to control what's exported? Is there a difference between what we export within our package and export from our package? Or anything in exports is available to anybody who includes the package?
No. So that's determined by what you set as your like main out. So like that's why realistically you would want like the value of having the exports, like you'd really want eventually, once everything's working, we're going to want to tie it all together so that swan.coffee actually exports a set of things. And
whatever our public API is?
Right. And then swan is going to be the file that you actually require, and that's going to be how you actually access the inner modules.
Right. So the only thing that people will see will be the module exports on swan.coffee? Or?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So
I mean, unless they were to require swan / something, you know.
Right, they could, although how would they get to that? There's no swan /.
Well, there is because it requires a file system thing. So you could require swan, and that's the name of the package, /source /.
Oh, I see. Okay, they could. So the default thing will be bound to this, but then they could also manually require inside the package. But that's mucking around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's our global thing there. So the idea would be that somewhere, so if this is our public API that is being accessed externally, then the second question is that, so what you were doing to deal with the dependency or the ordering problem is memoizing so what I was imagining that we would like to have happen is that the first time, so this thing is called first. So global.god requires that. So whatever is set here has to be set then. So if we do, right, in that case, then what we want is also, I guess almost like this, is the first time we call swan or anything else. Okay, let me back up what I was thinking. My thinking is that inside these worlds we do something like god.init.push. Like that, right? Is we add a list of initializations that are called. Actually, I don't think I understand why this helps.
What, memoize?
Yeah. What problem is that solving, and how do we make sure that that's robust?
So the problem it was solving is that gosh, where did we need to use it? It was swan string, I think.
Like swan string and swan thing, these things were the God object was calling them, but they may not have been defined before God was, right?
Wow.
Okay, so then, but in the converse case, so in this case where Swan calls God and maybe God calls world, in that case, if those two don't have dependencies, explicit dependencies on anything else, they will be loaded first. And then if everything else is self-contained, then they will all be loaded before any other things that's required will be loaded. Okay, here's a stupid question. If I'm just requiring God, and if I want to load all these other things, do I have to explicitly require them? Or does, like, for example, if this is all I have, I require God, I require world, world does not require anything else. If they get rid of there's no explicit dependencies on anything else.
Right.
In that scenario, when and how do other things get loaded or executed?
When you require them.
So if I don't require anything, nothing happens.
Right.
So if I want to do which before we were explicitly loading things, so it was fine. If we want to do dependency injection type things, where it's like load all these plugins from this directory who will load for themselves, is that a manual set of requires on something?
No, I mean, you could do a recursive file require. You can just recursively iterate through the directory and then require each of them.
What's the U in this case? Is that Mocha? Is that Makefile? What does that require?
No, that would be in swan.coffee.
Well, that means I have to manually do it, you mean?
Well, not each one individually. I mean, yes, you do have to manually require.
Okay, right. There is no way to automate. We have to. So basically, okay. So that's an interesting point. So there is no. So there isn't a whole lot of advantage to dependency injection that way, then, right? Because you basically have to explicitly refer to everything.
Well, I mean, it is an advantage because if you don't do dependency injection, you have to explicitly refer to everything and give it a name. But if you do this sort of like dependency injection, you can just require them in a for loop, and you don't care what they are. They determine their own destiny.
Right. Require them in a for loop.
Yeah.
Oh, you just do each as long as you have static strings.
All right. You iterate through. You traverse the directory and require every coffee file, and just let them do what they'll do.
Oh, so we just write our own little helper that.
Yeah.
Requires everything.
Right. Then you don't have to. I mean, yes, you have to manually require them, but you don't have to require them each individually. You can do a recursive require.
Okay. So we recursively require subdirectories, and then call god.init to and then anybody so either our specs or our external dependencies will all do this intelligently. So in this case, if that's the case, if everyone's only doing setup, then we may not need a separate init function, right? Because we can just explicitly we know that God's been created before I'm being created. Mm-hmm. So I shouldn't, as long as I'm only referring to myself, I can just push stuff onto God and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't need an init. That would be nice if that was the case. So that, okay. Then the other big thing that I was thinking about this predicate generator thing. Like you want to test and see if it can handle this type before you pass it to it.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized this is strong typing, right? I'm not allowed to call this function unless the argument matches its type signature.
Sure.
So why not just, this is our own language, we're defining the semantics, let's just define that these things have strong typing, that we have a general mechanism for testing whether a function can take an argument.
Okay.
And then in that case, it just becomes, that object has a steps validating arguments. Which is always undo. And then the and then that becomes the generic mechanism we use for our like our element wrappers and things like that. Right.
Okay.
Wherever that thing is. Yeah. It has some implications for what our default thing is. But it seems like this is the way I'm thinking about design, right? What are the common design patterns that show up all the time? And checking whether I can handle this, it seems to be a common design pattern in this kind of architecture. And I wasn't planning on introducing static typing of function signatures earlier on, but it seems like the easiest way to handle the overloading. And it will also give us some actual type checking for free. So that implies all sorts of things around, implies it has type predicate on every world. So probably a good thing pedagogically, but it's annoying in terms of the alligators in this. What is it? The trying to drain the swamp, but we spend all our time fighting alligators. Okay. The main thing we need, so we need some type checking stuff in our world, and then we need a router object. Well, actually, there's actually going to be, I think the way that I think of this is that it'll be something like this, where the eval thing has type pipe, the syntax has type which actually implies, nice and I'll be upset that eval and call are highlighted or worried.
What?
Eval and call are words that mean something to JavaScript.
I think eval is okay though. Let me double check. That's fine. They're highlighted, but it doesn't matter.
I mean, they are words that have a. We're allowed to use them as scoped words, but there is still significant semantics that JavaScript associates with those terms, right?
Yep.
So you already made the choice that we're going to use call for our invocations, even though they mean something different on JavaScript objects or JavaScript functions, right?
Well, they actually mean the same thing.
But the arguments are different, right? Because with call,
no, because the way we do call, well, no, that's not true. I guess the way we do call, yeah, we do set an implicit context.
yes.
I mean, we could do execute or something. I don't know. You send, that's Ruby.
Yeah. It's not trivial to get this right, is there? Is it?
Which one you want to do a regular expression though?
Let me just let's just pen that for now, and where's my there's our issues. And call to send view but that the eval we haven't really used for anything yet, so this is a chance to define it, to think correctly how we want that to be. I think it makes sense that as much as possible, except for wrap, which has to take JavaScript objects, to use think of these things as being worlds rather than functions. And so it takes a world and returns worlds, and it we just call it evaluate, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be reasonably obvious and not collide with the JavaScript namespace. And I have to go through and change the file. See why I hate file names.
Yeah.
Right. So the So these things we have to have a require for that's syntactically well formed, even if the um, actually, so this is another one of these tricky referential things. Do we have to define these here so that God, or actually no, it should be the other way. The actually we can create these later, right? Because let's actually think through how these things are going to be populated. Maybe that's a smarter way of doing it. Is that we now have evaluate. So ideally, world should not depend on anything, right? It should be except the God global being defined.
So the issue with that is that you can't have two files depend on each other.
Right. But
so if you want world to know about God, you can pass it in when you require it.
But if we're defining God as our global, then world will only be required after God is defined, correct?
Right. That's fine.
I can't know about world.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, these should these are defined by dependency injection. Those things will just be defined by those things when they are created. So this is really just God just is.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else just hangs itself off of God. And which would make that a lot simpler. I'll leave those now. Wait till those are defined. Then God not depend on anything. These just notes, which we will leave for now. Okay, so then, so God does not depend on anything. World. We want to deconstruct from those components. Some classes it, we instantiate it. The only thing that's Um, is this, by the way, where's call here? Oh, that was a question I had. So I can make these, like these references here, we can use call for, correct?
Mm,
There's a reason we're using @get rather than call. Right, that's pretty much the same thing, isn't it?
what?
@get property argument is
Right, yeah, you could use a call for that.
semantically that's what we're doing, right? Is
Right.
we're doing all those things. Okay. Um, the um, base and array. So the okay. Um, okay. So then let's just talk about this. Um, world does not explicitly depend on anything except the global God. Did you come up with a better way of doing the? Any thoughts about a better way to do this other than just brute force inheritance chain?
Yeah, I mean, we can do includes.
What does include?
Um, I mean, a mix-in.
Okay, so how, right, is there? I guess there is like a three-liner to do.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to do that? Should you send me a link and I should just paste it in, or I guess
Um,
we're only doing it this one place, right? So
mhm. I can send you the page that it's on.
or should I save this and we flubit it, or um, is that the? Is that the one you mean?
Yep. So if you go down a little bit further to extending classes,
Mm-hmm.
that's the idea that you want to do. Um, you want to um, extend your extendable class as a module, and then you can use that at include or at extend.
So should I just create class module as a as actually something in my like just create that file?
Yep.
So just go into here and do.
Or you can make it part of. You can just make those methods part of world. No, 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 no. You should.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna do. Okay, and so then so I can call those things multiple times, correct?
Yeah.
So then world becomes something like extends module.
Mhm.
So
Right.
right, and then um, And will that actually work with something that's like a subclass of array, we think? Or is that getting too wacky?
Wait, why are we subclassing array?
So the idea was, this thing is a plist, right?
Mm-hmm.
These my worlds, and I want to think of them as actually being an array with properties.
Okay.
And so, which means update is not well defined, but that the conceptually in my head, this is an array with properties.
Okay.
Right? A dictionary which happens to contain an array. So it is a dictionary and it's an array. So extending array is the most conceptually clean way of thinking about it for me. And then it also makes it much less gratuitous wrapping, I guess, at the price of losing direct updates.
Yeah, but like what you're doing right now makes it effectively not actually behave like an array at all.
Sorry, which
The
thing?
code that I'm looking at right now makes it not behave like an array at all.
The base class?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's because this is just the this was just the thing I copy and pasted over. You know, so this is, if I have that, then I should get those things for free, right? So I don't need the. So that's my base class that I'm starting from. Um, that can I extend that like as a mix in here? Or is that going to make everything really weird and confusing?
No, I mean, I guess. Hold on. Go back to the code sample there. No, you can't extend a class. That doesn't make sense.
Oh, I can't extend a class.
No, that doesn't. I mean, that doesn't make sense.
So add extends means something different than extends, is the important point.
Yes.
Okay, so the question is, if I wanted to do this, then I'd have to do something more like, extends.
Wait, but why? Like, why?
Well, the question is that I want to think of my world as actually being an array.
Mm-hmm.
And remember I told you the goal is to try and create these worlds as things where I can add as little as possible and remove as little as possible to turn them into my semantic concept of worlds.
Right.
And so if I can take an array that I can assign properties to, then I don't have to do another level of indirection and gymnastics. If it works.
Let me. I don't even know. I honestly don't even know if it works or not. Let me try to run that a little bit of code real quick and see what that actually looks like.
Okay, should I change to your screen?
Sure. I'll share my screen.
Shared control.
All right. So here, base. So there's my class. Go ahead and try and execute this code. Oh, don't I think that should have done it though, right? Base. Okay, yeah. So I do have a base. So I'm going to say a equals new base. No, we didn't get our.
We don't seem to have we don't seem to be able to treat. If you just do it with a regular dictionary, can you add properties to it? Is there? Can you just, if you were just doing it as a actual array and then just adding properties directly onto it?
Yeah, I mean, I can actually take the instance and go. Yeah.
Okay. It works at the instance level. It doesn't seem to be working at the.
I mean, because that's just standard practice in JavaScript. An array is just an object. So.
But not for purposes of inheritance.
What do you mean?
I mean, you can't seem to. I guess extends is not well defined, which is why this gets weird.
Extends is not native JavaScript, really.
Right. So that magic does not play nicely with array.
No, and that's just.
And maybe that's the thing that's being fixed in ES6.
Right.
So you can nominally do it, but if you actually want it to work,
yeah,
it's like it doesn't. Okay. So.
But I don't know. All right.
So now we know. Great.
You want to switch back to your screen?
Yes, let's do that. Then we need to undo that. Source / build / no. Oh, sorry. Right, so. Okay, so we know that machinations wasn't working, which means we can go back to the idea of we have a module, we have a world which has modules, and then I guess we were calling this body. Which is not legal, so let me just go back to this, right? And I assume it's much smarter to just put our requires all up here and then do them in the order we care about rather than doing them in line with our extends. Would it be callable? Is there any particular convention? Daniel, you there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, callable's fine, I think.
We're thinking about calling it send or.
Yeah, I mean, we could do sendable.
Let's actually look at what's in there and see if we can come up with a better. So it's actually doable. Kind of a weird word though. So if we have this as our primitive, and that would become, well, that's weird. Is that right? No, that is actually right. Right.
No, you can change it to send, do, args. Yeah. No. Oh, yeah.
Now, yes. Since we can get rid of the extra. Um, um, then the I guess actually send is probably fine, right? Is there any body scope send? I don't know. I guess
I
scope.
like the able sort of suffix. It by language sort of defines that it's a behavior and not a thing.
Okay, well, in that case, we should be going something like enumerable, heritable, callable, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, we don't extend extendable. That would be redundant. So we do that route. Then this is why I love TextMate. That should be extends rather than includes, or
Let me look at that page. No, actually, I think you want to include because includes adds instance properties rather than class properties.
then we define these things as
Objects.
as objects rather than classes.
Mm-hmm.
Enumerable, inheritable, callable. Okay, and then these all become um, 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 and then what's the word for output? Printable? Exportable? Is export too awkward of a word? And these become then exports module equal
Mm-hmm.
just that.
Yep. I mean,
Uh,
outputable or exportable seems to make most sense to me.
Outputable seems awkward.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be a real word.
Well, it's a readable word.
Printable.
A pronounceable word.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Inheritable, inheritable, callable, printable, and then we just have the constructor. Um, the the right. So we define our. We don't have anything else that defines. Um, the local properties. Well, I guess this assumes that body data exists, but we take care of that below. And then this is now that now, right? Bullets module, enumerables, module, callable. Seconds.
Isn't it actually module.exports?
Oh, right. Right. Why did I have that backwards? Good idea. Close enough. Okay. So if we can do that, then those things are all self-contained, right? They don't depend on anything. Error is a built-in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
object.
Yep.
And then this relies on, this relies on callable. Does that matter? The report doesn't really matter that much, but
No, it should be fine.
conceptually,
Where was that?
enumerable called world.do
Mm-hmm.
in world.do. So in some sense, that's after. So in some sense, I think inheritable is the most primitive, right?
Now, realistically, that's not each, like, oh, I guess it is. Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Right, and then this should actually have dot each equals this is here, right? In theory, it doesn't really matter which direction we put it in, but as a stylistic thing, I like the idea of having it here, because that way we know what all the dependencies are.
Mm-hmm.
Should that be at the beginning or at the end?
I feel like it makes sense to me to have it. Wait, module exports is up at the top?
Right.
To me, I would like to have it in between the definition of everything else and the module exports. Module exports to me should always be at the end because it's the last thing that
It
needs
should
to
be
happen.
something like enumerable,
Mm-hmm.
and then module exports equal enumerable.
Right.
All right. So the idea is if we can go through all of our world classes and do this, and then we do the same thing, and then we can then, all right, so world and God, I think it's clear what they need to be. There's just a fair amount of tedium to get them working right. How much time do you have today, Daniel?
What?
How much time do you have left to code? You have one more phone call you're expecting, right?
Yeah, but just whenever it comes, I don't know if they'll actually call back today. I hope they do. But
Another hour or two then to work.
yeah.
All right. Do you feel up for like going through God and world and cleaning them up and rationalize them according to this design pattern?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you take that on, and then I guess also disabling all the other specs or requires so it doesn't blow up. So let me go ahead and close this. Origin refactor files.
Okay.
All right, so then, yeah, if you can get God and the world straightened out, then I think we can revisit our other. I think then that will get our. Then after that, we'll do the wrappers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll keep our dependency path fairly clean. So God depends on nothing. The world only depends on God. And then the wrappers only depend on the world. And then probably our syntax will actually only depend on the no. There's another thing that I'm not sure where it lives. I'm losing your screen or your face for some reason.
Oh, sorry.
There's a few things that it's not clear whether they're part of the evaluation loop or the wrappers. Things like an expression.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess technically the expression never appears in the result. It's really just a closure is the thing that appears in a result. It's actually an interesting question is whether, actually there's probably a good argument to be made that we actually want to be able to wrap a function, right? God.wrap, pass in a function, it'll give us back a closure object.
Okay.
Because we want to be able to operate on worlds.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also nice to be able to just have a very nice syntax. So maybe that's where we're and in fact, our closure and a JavaScript function are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can add a reference. Anyway, so I think if we get God in the world cleaned up and working properly and whatever specs passing, then tomorrow morning we can tackle the wrappers.
Okay.
All right? God and baby's willing.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Daniel. I know this was a lot of sideways motion, but it makes it. I feel like we're thinking more clearly.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, good luck with everything. Let me know if anything exciting happens with your interviews.
Thanks, Ernie.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Good day.
By the way, I read Kelly's blog post. Very, very cool. Very exciting.
Awesome.
Let's look to seeing her continue pushing forward in that journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, bye.
Thanks, Ernie. Bye.